This is a bonus episode with a good friend of mine, Lucy Werner, who's the founder of the Wern, a boutique consultancy for publicity and design. She has over 17 years of publicity experience both in-house and for some of London's top agencies. She has written a best-selling book called Hype Yourself, and her second book, Brand Yourself, is available for pre-order now, and she wrote it with the so-called co-founder of her two children and her business's creative director. She has worked with hundreds of creative entrepreneurs and teaches all things PR for spaces such as CAS, Business School, Hedge, Courier Magazine, Second Home, and so many others. I actually met Lucy because I took one of her courses a few months, maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember anymore. But she is incredible. She's such an honest person when it comes to all things PR. She's a big advocate for raising your profile, believing in yourself. Today we talked to Lucy about how she started her career, how she decided to pivot to have her own business in the way that it is right now, comparison traps and things that you can do today to become a better advocate for yourself or your business. Check out the show notes for links on her book, her courses, and also the course that she did to get her first book deal, which is really exciting. And finally, if you are interested, please do pre-order Lucy's book. 50% of all profits will go towards the Great Ormond Street Fund. Lucy finished her first book as her second child was in and out of cardiac intensive care, and she had to return 5 days after the launch of Hype Yourself for his fourth round of open heart surgery. The small business community at that time really rallied around her to support her, and this is her way to give back to other parents and children like them. So there's a link to that as well. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Lucy and this bonus episode, and do up your game when it comes to raising your profile and shouting out about yourself. Lucy, welcome to the Eyeline Networking podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you today about everything from PR, branding, and going on your own. So before we get there, can you just introduce yourself and just tell people where you're from, where you're at right now, and what is it that you do?
Yeah, so if you don't know me, my name's Lucy Werner, and I've worked in publicity for 17 years. I've run my own agency or consultancy for the last 7 called the Wern. And then in the last few years, since sort of having children, I kind of wanted to pivot and change how I was working. So I've been doing more teaching and support work to small businesses and freelancers on how to do their publicity and branding, which came off sort of the back of my first book, Hype Yourself, so it now exists as an online platform called hypeyourself.com. And I split my time between the Wern consultancy and the teaching side on Hype Yourself.
Okay, so before we get into all of that, I want to say that before I met you, PR in my books had a really bad rap, and I think it still in general has a bad rap as people that are like just intermediaries of, journalists and others and so on. But through what I've learned with you, there's a lot more to, PR that goes into that. It's about raising your profile and so on. So do you want to kind of tell us what made you attracted to PR in the first place, and maybe what it should be or it is that, dismantles some of those myths that people will stop hating it so much?
So when I was a kid growing up, I used to watch Lois and Clark, The Next Adventures of Superman on TV, and I wanted to be Lois Lane. I wanted to be a journalist. I was a member of the Fun Day Times Club. I was a member of like the CBBC press pack. If you're in the UK, it's like a young journalist club to try and speak on the children's news show. And I thought I was going to be a writer. I used to write stories. And then I kind of just really lost a lot of confidence in myself at school. So that whole being a creative writer bit was kind of kicked out of me. And my older brother got me a work experience job in Soho when I was 17 for a music PR company. And I just didn't realize that it existed. I was getting free music. I could wear jeans and trainers to the office. Everyone was cool. And it was kind of the other side. So you were speaking to journalists, and you were working with journalists, and you were writing, but there was so much more to it than just writing. So I thought, I think I could be good on this. And I still kind of got to work with the journalists. So that's actually where it all it came from.
I love that it started with like Superman, but
Superman, Lois Lane, the Daily Planet. Yeah, I think, you know, people either kind of know like PR reps of celebrities, or there's sort of TV shows that are absolutely fabulous, and it's just very sort of darling, sweetie fashion, kissing on the red carpet. And really, those two types of PR are obviously more based on one strand of PR, which is what I call publicity, or other people know it as media relations, which is when you are pitching to journalists. And the reason why I actually think PR is so much more accessible now is because it's so much more than just pitching to a journalist. And back in the day, you know, people did just have a Rolodex, and that was how they got stories into the press. But now we have online databases, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn. Like, there's so many ways to build connections now that there wasn't historically. But also, yeah, like you discussed, PR is more than just publicity and getting your name in the paper. And in fact, some of the biggest sort of new business drivers that businesses can do when it comes to publicity is actually elevating their own personal brand, or speaking as an expert, and kind of pivoting themselves, not just from I'm a business owner of this service or this product, but also sharing your journey or your expertise and helping your audience or other business partners to know more about you so they connect with you, which in turn kind of boosts your network and can boost your business.
Yeah, and I guess in the previous times we had celebrities and that was it, and now we have with like
hashtag bizfluencer.
Yeah, with the rise of social media, you have everything. You know, you have like people that show up like on the music stage because of TikTok, and so it's like I feel personally that there's a lot more noise. So it's even more important that you know how to, you know, put yourself above that if you want to get anyone to see you, because it's hard. But there's also so many different outlets for people to find out about you or your business. So it's kind of,
yeah, and I think it's
perhaps
just
more complicated.
Being really confident in who you are and what you do, and shouting about it, which a lot of Brits can be really scared to do. But like, one of my favorite accounts that I'm following at the moment is called Cozy Coupes. And it's literally somebody who rescues those kids' coupes, like the red and yellow plastic cars.
Yeah.
And then does them up. And that's it. And I'm like, I just love it. I love how super niche and weird and intricate and geeky knowledge that she's got to be able to do this, that I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I think that's the way, you know, whatever your business is, it's not too boring. It's not, you're not enough of an expert. Whatever you're doing, it is fascinating to other people, and you don't think it is because you're doing it day in, day out.
But this begs the question, that was because you used to do this for other people, and then at one point you decided to go on your own.
Yeah.
So how easy was it for you to do that for yourself?
You know, I did bits and bobs when I had more of a team, before I was kind of Lucy Werner PR. Or I guess my alter ego is the Wern, my celebrity bizfluencer face. My drag alter ego is the Wern. Yeah, you know, at first I definitely felt a bit of an idiot, especially when I was sort of on Instagram being like, hi, I'm Lucy, brushing hair over shoulder. I'm a PR expert. And, you know, I'd be talking I'd maybe be a bit vulnerable, in fact, sometimes. And you get messages from like uni friends being like, you okay, hun? Because you're suddenly putting things out there. But I was like, no, because for me, it was important to be real. And that's not every day's great. You know, it's not that Lego film song. It's like, everything is awesome. It's not awesome all the time. So I've always, right from the start, kind of wanted to be clear on that. So I share the wins, but I share, you know, the vulnerable bits too. But being vulnerable feels very vulnerable in itself. I think what helped me is I didn't do it straight from leaving agency land. So I had 5 years after I left agency land before I really went all in on pushing my own profile. So I probably didn't feel like my industry peers were watching me as much. And at that point, there were some other really amazing women on Instagram who were doing PR for small business and startups, but they were completely different to me. So I felt like there was a real opportunity for me to put my own personal brand stamp out there.
Okay, so in what way did you find that you were different? Like, what was your USP?
Me, bitch.
Me, is that what you tell people? Like, girl, it's you.
Yeah, because there is no such thing as an original business, really. It is just your own individual thumbprint that differentiates you. But I guess also what I did have in my back pocket was Hadrien. He's my co-founder of my children, but he's also the creative director of my business. Let's just get it right, okay? Not co-founder of the business, it's mine. But he helped me when I decided I wanted to go out and raise my profile. The first thing I did, which is actually slightly backwards, it should have been him first and then the photography, but I created a mood board with a portrait photographer called Almas Badat. She worked with me to create loads of photos, and I was like, right, I've spent this money now, so now I'm going to have to use them. So I worked with Hadrien on my brand values and the brand strategy, and he gave me the color palette and the look and the feel, and I deleted everything I'd ever posted previously, and then I started from scratch again. So it felt like for me, it was like, right, I'm coming out of the gate, and it's like, I'm here. This is my Beyonce strutting out on stage moment. And and I just kind of went from it. So it was a really conscious, I felt it's a bit like, I guess, when people work with fashion stylists and they clear out their wardrobe and they start with new fashion, they step out the house, they're like, look at me now. It was like that. But I had my new Instagram coat on with all my bright colors and my brand personality of being kind of educational, but also fun and direct. And I was like, right, I'm ready to hit it. Let's go.
So how did you go about, like, what was your strategy, I guess? Like, you wanted to cement yourself as a PR expert, and you wanted to, did you already have your course at this time, or were you still working for clients?
So I was still working for clients, and Babe number 2 was on its way. So this was January 2019 was when I had my kind of Mariah Carey transformation. And I was like, I'm going to try and get a book deal, and I'm going to try and pivot the business so that I can do teaching work. So I wanted to teach in more universities and do more workshops and lectures and get paid as a speaker and paid for writing, so that I could have flexible work around having 2 children. And so I did this. The first thing I actually did was I paid to do a book proposal challenge, where you basically over 10 days learn how to write a book proposal, which you can then submit to publishers. But the woman running the challenge has her own small publishing company, and she offered me a publishing deal at the end of the challenge. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll be writing the book then. All of the online stuff, which is now hyperself.com, which I've only really launched as a platform in May this year, it's taken me really 2 years to do from when I set out, like, this is how I want to do it. So I wanted the book to come out to prove my authority, so I could use that to then show to people, I'm going to be a good person to teach you and walk you through this, because I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Did you feel so you felt more confident once you had the book to put yourself as expert, but do you think that that's the best way to go, or is there other ways that you see people doing that to place themselves in that space?
I don't think the book necessarily gave me more confidence. I think the book gave me more credibility, and it opened a lot more doors for me than I would have had if I didn't have the book. Some of the speaking opportunities and the paid for writing opportunities I know I had because of the book. So I don't think without it, I think I'd still have the same level of confidence. I just think for me, I was lucky. It opened a lot of doors for me. I think the confidence definitely came from taking that time out to really plan, who am I? What am I about? Who am I for? What's my end goal? And I'm not going to lie, there have definitely been times, particularly when I gave birth to my second child, and there was other women around me giving birth who were talking about how much money they were making per month, and I was not making anywhere near that amount of money. Watching them come up with ideas, launch them very quickly, and you start doubting yourself, like, should I be taking as long? Like, why am I so slow? It feels like I'm not achieving anything. Then you kind of fast forward to now, where he's now 2. Those people have even changed what they're doing again. Whereas I think what people do like about me is that I'm consistent. I'm consistent in what it is I want to talk about and what I teach and what I work on. So it's really easy for somebody to know, Lucy does PR. They might not know if it's agency or teaching work per se. That doesn't really matter, but they know that that's the world I play in. So it helps with my brand recognition and people having me at front of mind because they know me for that one umbrella term, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. So how important, I guess, is branding when it comes to PR and raising your profile? And what is branding? Like, I feel like people talk about that a lot and not everyone knows.
Yeah. So I think people think branding is a logo, whereas actually the brand, knowing your brand is a bit like knowing your stories. It's actually the fundamental before you even start on publicity. So it's really about knowing what your values are, what your vision, your mission, your purpose is, your target audience, what it is that you want to achieve. And then the visuals of your brand help to convey that so your audience understand what it is that you're about. So there's a lot of color psychology. So colors can help choose. You typically think about things like McDonald's, KFC, Burger King. They're all red, and there's a reason. There's a reason and a rationale for that. And there's certain kind of color palettes that we see that they connect to our certain feelings. Fonts, you take it for granted, but there's sort of a whole feeling in that. And even the images that you're using and what they convey, and the style that they're taken in. So there is, the visual is only good when you know what it is that's underpinning it. So you can make sure that what you're using visually is actually conveying what it is that you want your brand to be about. And I think particularly for small business owners, some of the mistakes that I see are people who come out and they start saying they're a we when it's just them because they want to seem bigger than they are, or it's quite faceless. And actually the gift of being a freelancer or a small business owner is we can be so agile and so quick. And what makes people want to work with us is the human side of it. You see like bigger businesses and bigger corporations, they're always trying to bring that human touch to the business. So it's such a mistake for small business owners to think they need to be faceless and not show themselves to seem bigger than they are, because actually it loses that kind of local shopkeeper touch, if you know what I mean.
So Lucy, what are some of the main mistakes you see people do when it comes to like hyping themselves or, doing PR from themselves or not doing it?
It really depends on the confidence level of the person. So on one hand, you might get very overconfident people who really wax lyrical about everything they've done since they did their exams at school at 16 before it gets onto what they've done today, and they try and sort of cram in all the information about themselves. And that can be when they're introducing themselves on a podcast, it could be when they're talking on a stage, it could be when they're pitching to a journalist. And the problem is that when you give too much information, is actually people lose interest and they can't focus on the one thing. So definitely just sort of saying your name and what it is you do, and then 2 or 3 sentences max as your intro should be something that people have in their artillery. But equally on the other end of the spectrum, you get people who have kind of low confidence and kind of don't want to declare what it is that they do, or they're worried that it's too complicated or people won't understand. And actually I was on a business accelerator that's run by Daniel Priestley, and he teaches a method of going name, same and fame. So you say your name very slowly because people rush over that. You say what your same is, the bit that people understand, and then your fame. And that's where you can kind of give the sort of 2 or 3 sentences that backs up what you do, or kind of gives that sort of credibility. Like, I've worked with X number of people, or I've worked with these clients, or I've won this award. That bit that just kind of gives the zhuzh. I think I say 17 years PR experience. That's my fame. But yeah, I think people they get really nervous about just even introducing themselves and repeating it, because they think they're repeating themselves. But actually most people, they're not really paying attention. So you could do your introduction 100 times and they still probably are not going to know it,
And I think something that I see, at least through the eyeliner networking community, there is some sort of reticence of people putting themselves forward for opportunities themselves. Oh, I would like to speak on, I don't know, this podcast, or I like to submit myself to an award I did. Is there something you tell people to do to get over this? Do you see that a lot?
I think it's I do see that. And actually one of the things that I always ask people is like, what's your dream big? Like, what's your dream piece of coverage or your dream speaking opportunity? And when somebody can't answer that, you're kind of like, well, then I don't know how to direct you or help you. Like, you need to figure out where it is you need to end up. And then you need to start taking incremental steps to get there. So a lot of the community that I speak to, that are like, I want a TEDx talk, or I want a book published. And I'm like, okay, cool. Which commissioning editors are you following on LinkedIn or Twitter? Or which curators for TEDx are you following on Twitter or LinkedIn? And they're like, oh, I'm not. And you think there's just such easy ways that you can start getting onto people's radars without sending an email sales pitch, just to even start to build those relationships, which is the beauty of social media now, is that we can access all these people that we couldn't previously, but we don't always take advantage of it.
And it's funny because I think this is where some of what you said on the course that I did with you a while ago really spoke to me, because I don't ever see networking, as you know, as something that it's a give and take. And with everything in life, you need to build relationships. And I believe it's the same. Like, you can always tell someone is emailing you, it's like, oh, can I be on your podcast? And they never even listen to it.
100%.
And you're like,
people get so scared of reaching out to people they don't know, but actually you can start to kind of get to know people through social. And that, for all the bad that there is on social media, there's so many opportunities there for us to take.
Yes, so many. So since we're talking about mistakes that people make, can you tell us what was one of the worst mistakes you've ever made?
So many mistakes. And what I will say is, for every crying on the floor, I think I want to give up, this is too hard mistake, I have learned so much about myself and the business. So it's really hard to pick one, but I will say, I'm going to say a few very quickly. One, make sure you've got legal protection on your business and insurance. So should anything go wrong, you have protection. I think, if you're looking to grow a team and grow a business model and you're a woman at child rearing age, think about that and how you're going to do that. I thought I could do it all. I didn't have a co-founder, and I wanted to be a sort of half stay-at-home mum and half at work and half run a business. And it isn't possible to grow and bring in new business leads and nourish a team and actually do the work you really enjoy doing on sort of 2.5 days a week. So that was a not very pleasant experience, because I had to make my team redundant. So that was a hard mistake. It's really hard. And actually, I think once you kind of reach a certain size, you need somebody there whose job is basically to manage the employees.
Yeah. And I think this is sometimes I think about careers, not specifically just about like the title of your job, but like, what is your day-to-day like? Things like that. Like, do you want to be managing people? How many, like those things that really kind of make a big impact into your life. And I think for women that are considering having a family, all those things are even more important to consider, of course, because still a lot of the work falls upon us.
Yeah.
Like physically speaking as well.
Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to go back to something you said. You mentioned like Paris and Quiet a few times, like the first time you compared yourself with other people and like how you saw this is not going too fast. And I think it's really hard for many people because we always see the finished result of others as opposed to everything that goes in doing that work, right?
Yeah.
So I would be curious to know, what is something that you actually spend a lot of time doing that you didn't really think you would, or that people may not see?
I spend a lot of time learning about business, which I know that sounds probably quite obvious, but I just thought, oh, I know how to do PR, I'm going to do PR. But actually, I was just doing what I learned from a big agency and tried to apply it as a sort of freelance model in a way, which obviously didn't work. That's why people don't do small business PR agencies for small business. So I had to learn how to sort of pivot and how to develop product and how to develop services and costings and profit and loss and all these other unsexy things that actually the kind of geek in me loves learning about. So yeah, I read a lot more about business and business mindset and yeah, just sort of the different ways of working that I just really didn't think would be sort of the dominating part of my work. And I've spent a lot of time in sort of an accelerator in the last year. And it's been quite soul searching.
And I think you also did, like you mentioned that you paid probably, I'm assuming, for this 10-day make a book plan thing.
Yeah.
Pilot. Forget what it's called. Book proposal.
Proposal. Yeah.
Pilot. Oops. And then for the course that I did with you was a while ago. I know you launched some new ones, which you should tell us about. But did you have to stop to consider what your offer was going to be, how to deliver it?
Yeah.
Because this is not something, like, I love talking, and even I'm like, oh, I actually have to think about how I'm going to talk about this too. You know, like how I'm delivering this.
I actually, so we did 2 courses previously. It was an Instagram design course and a Elevate Your Personal Brand course. And we're completely redoing them because it's not that it's not our expertise has changed in 2 years. It's that we've spent time training as teachers, and we've been working for a modern business school called Jolt as teaching instructors, where we have to build our own presentations. We have classes that mark us every week. Every time we talk, they give us feedback, good and bad. We have speaking instructors come and critique us, good and bad. And we've learned so much about ourselves and our teaching style. And actually, on both of these new courses, we've worked with a curriculum instructor, which probably he was more expensive than what we probably made on the first run of the courses. But I think there's this real, hey, you're an expert. You just make an online course and you can make money. Like, I made 10 grand in a month. You can too by selling an online course. Some spiel out there. And actually, have these people done a lesson plan? Have they thought about the user journey and the learner experience? And if you do want to make loads of money from online courses, that's brilliant. But the way you're going to do that is from your customers having a really good time and from learning and from being interactive with the content and engaging with it, and then them telling their friends about it. And the majority of people don't complete online courses. So for us, it was like a real challenge to be like, how can we make them do the work so that they actually get the most from it?
I really didn't know that. Is that like a stat? Like, people don't complete? That's crazy.
Yeah. And so for me, it's not, I am motivated by earning money, but material wealth is not my leading driver. Helping small business owners so they can grow their business and having people go, oh my God, like, I got in New York Times, I got in Wired magazine, I've just been booked by a stylist to speak on their stage, whatever it is. When those things happen, it fills me with so much joy, more than seeing a £75 course being put into my PayPal. You know what I mean? So I want those people to do well. It's not about, if I, make 10,000 a month from a course, but no one's actually doing better from it, that's not going to make me feel good. So it is, it's striking that balance between, keeping the lights on and potentially trying to get a bit for the savings pot, but also delivering a really good service. And I think having to do that training work and really look at what you're doing, it's excruciating. It's horrible when you create a video and your course instructor comes back and then tells you how that video could be so much better.
Yeah. Feedback is hard.
Feedback is hard. But you know what? That's the other thing. Like, I've run my own business for 7 years and I always had freelancers or employees, rarely who would critique me. But I am definitely not perfect and I definitely always want to be learning. So for me, working with experts to critique my work and tell me how I can do better is very painful, but so important.
So important. I think this is why when you work for yourself or a small business, it's important to really build a network of peers, of people that you can actually share, people who give and say like, well, it doesn't look good or whatever, it's really, really important. Like,
and they're your best mates, not the people who are the yes men.
No, never. It's not. Yeah. It's like your network is also about that support that you can get. It's not all about deals and things and like black on white. Well, I mean, my perspective on it, which I think we share. Well,
yeah, definitely. 100%.
Okay. So Lucy, we spoke a little bit about the course, which we are going to link on the show notes, but I want you to tell everyone about your 2 books. Because one, is you did yourself, I think. And the second one you did with the co-founder of your kids. So how
Yeah.
did that work?
So I wrote Hype Yourself. It was doing well. We got engaged. We drank too many rosés. I was like, we should do a book together. It'll be a great idea. Emailed a proposal to my publisher, like, we'll do the same as Hype Yourself, but for brand. But obviously, Hadrien, I can't write it because he's French and dyslexic. So I will co-write it with him. It'll be a Sunday Times business bestseller. Let's go. And she was like, yeah, great, let's go. And I was like, oh. So then we actually had to do it. So we kind of worked together to basically do the same version of Hype Yourself, which is a PR toolkit for small businesses. I say small businesses, but actually, even if you've got a side hustle or a freelancer, it would work for you. And I think originally it was like a PR toolkit for small businesses, side hustles, freelancers. And my publisher was like, no, you can't. You cannot do this. So it's called Brand Yourself, the new one. It's available for pre-order. If you're listening later in the year, it's coming out September the 7th, 2021. But the reason that we're banging on about pre-orders is it basically sends signals to retailers and people like Amazon to get stock in, so that when we launch, we don't sell out on launch day and people aren't waiting weeks for stock and then give up, and it could potentially help us do, better sales and get greater reach and greater awareness. That's why authors are always like, pre-order, because it makes such a difference. So yeah, it's going to walk you through your brand strategy, how to choose your toolkit, a bit on personal brand, and then we've whacked in a bunch of like creative examples at the end of like ways that you could bring your brand to life on a budget. And then we've given some templates and sort of bits and bobs of how you can work with designers and photographers and printers, and it comes with a playbook, so you can basically download the playbook from the website and in essence read the book and put your whole brand strategy together.
That's amazing. Okay, I didn't know that. I just want to know, did you use sort of the same template to develop this book proposal as the first one you did?
Yeah, same
one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can link to that course if that still exists, if in case anyone wants.
So she runs it once a quarter. I can send you the link. She's Alison Jones, and she's the editor in chief, I guess, of Practical Inspiration Publishing. She's brilliant. She's really into supporting marginalized voices and getting more of those people writing business books and out into the world. So if you're feeling like your voice isn't being heard out there, she is definitely a friendly editor to approach on that front, because she's quite vocal about that situation in the publishing land.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll link to that as well. I'll give her a shout out. So on the topic of books, Lucy, what is one book you actually give people a lot besides yours, which I imagine you would?
Actually, it's oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. He gives this example in the beginning about Glastonbury and how we all end up queuing, for this mad rush for Glastonbury tickets, and it sells out every year, even though it sells, hundreds of thousands of tickets. And it's actually, he kind of talks about this sort of business model of, creating this oversupply for over demand for the supply of your business. And when you're in that position, whether you're a product or a service business owner, you can put your rates up and you can pick and choose more who it is that you're working with and the work that you do. So it's just a really inspiring book for business owners on how you can kind of learn to put a better model into your business. You're not always scratching and searching for the next customer, but that you have a process and a system in place to bring the work to you.
Okay, Luz, we're getting to the end of this. We're going to do a few short questions, lightning round, whatever people call that. I can never remember those sort of expressions. Okay, so yeah, we're going to do this. What is the worst career advice you've ever received?
Grow your company to 1 million and sell it.
Really? Yeah. That sounds like some, no offense to those people out there, but the Instagram coaches that we see on their reels being like, this is how to make 6 figures in 2 days.
It was literally my old mentor, who was a badly chosen mentor for my lifestyle business. He was kind of like, lifestyle business? You need to turn over 1 million and sell it. No, that's not again, material wealth, not my bag. I want to have a nice life.
Yeah. With purpose. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, and good night.
Great. I'm glad you didn't listen to that. Okay. Luz, what's your best networking tip?
Join I Like Networking.
Thanks, everyone.
I mean, if you're listening to this and you're not heavily engaged with what Isabel's doing, you are missing out.
You are definitely missing out.
But actually, I would genuinely
say she can't speak Portuguese or English properly anymore. She can now work.
But I would actually say, you know, when it comes to networking, kind of replace that word with just connecting. Just go out and connect with a few people on Twitter or LinkedIn and just let it sit there. Don't worry about having to do any more with it, you know.
Exactly.
Take some gentle steps forward, people.
Okay, if you could give anyone an advice on how to work with your significant other without killing each other, what would it be?
Get an assistant who mediates between you, because whatever their hourly rate is, it's cheaper than a divorce lawyer.
Definitely. Okay, great. And then
he's laughing in the background.
I love that. I mean, I can't imagine working like with my sister. I feel like, well, she would murder me because she's stronger. But
do you know what? It's taken us. So we've worked together now for 3 years. Also, bearing in mind, we met at work. So we used to sit opposite each other. And his company he worked for an innovation consultancy that were incubating my business. So we sometimes worked on projects together. So it wasn't our first rodeo. The thing that's not a problem. So let's say if we were like, okay, we're going to take brand Isabel, we're going to create her a brand, and I'm going to do the PR, and we're going to work on the strategy together and execute it. No probs. But if we were like, we need to do a website for ourselves, or write a book, or create a product, and we have to work together, woof. I mean, I've literally had a neighbour come on the knock on the door going, I've just moved into the area, is everything okay? Talking when we were having a debate about website colours. So it's not been plain sailing, but definitely now we're kind of divide and conquering. So the collaboration part is very minimal. And Paula, our lovely assistant, mediates between us very successfully.
I love that. Is she like a virtual assistant, or is she there with you?
No, she's a virtual assistant. She's kind of, I would say she's half a virtual assistant. No, not even half. She's probably like 20% virtual assistant and 80% head of operations. Like, she kicks our butt, and it's really good.
Love that. Shout out to Paula.
Shout out to Paula. She's the legend.
Yeah. And okay, finally, let's see if there's one thing people should do today to hype themselves. What should it be?
Pick somewhere that you want to end up and take those steps to get there. So if you want to be in a particular publication, or if you want to be in a publication, buy it and read it. You want to be on a certain podcast, listen to it. You know, if you want to speak at a conference, make friends with the people who are curating and organizing that event. I think, and also, I guess, a little bonus tip. Don't think about what is good for your ego. Think about what is good for your audience. Case in point, right? So I work in publicity. You might think, I want to be in PR Week or PR Moment or any of the PR publications. But actually, my audience is small business freelancers, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. So anytime I can speak to that audience, so doing a podcast with you, for example, is so much more beneficial to me than being in PR Week, where it's only other PRs who are going to see me.
This is like an amazing tip.
Yeah, lose the ego.
Lucy, give us your spiel now. Do your best to hype yourself. Tell us where to find you, or your course. I did one of your courses. It was amazing. I learned so much. It was really great. I didn't even have Twitter and didn't think I needed that. I didn't know anything before I did your course, and it really helped me a lot. So thank you. I vouch for you.
Oh, so, thank you so much.
Give us the run
sales
of your
spiel.
Offer. Yeah.
So we have a bunch of free resources on hypeyourself.com. So there's free downloads, free templates. If you want to learn how to do your own PR strategy or publicity, you've got my book, Hype Yourself, which you can buy from my website, with a starter kit with my 52 PR tips, which are prompt cards, because once people read a book, they kind of put it down and forget. So there's lots of tips and in those cards to help remind you what to do. If you want to learn about branding, you can pre-order our second book, Brand Yourself. We have a lot of people who want tips and advice from us on how to do their social media templates. So we have an Instagram design course coming out. So again, on hypeyourself.com, all the information's there. And once a quarter, I'm opening and closing the How to Raise Your Profile, Elevate Your Personal Brand course, which is the one that you took, because I'm now doing it with monthly Q&A access to myself, so people can ask questions on their pitch, or if they're struggling with content ideas or advice. We keep the numbers small so that everybody has access to either me if it's a PR course, or Hadrien if it's a branding course. But if you've got a bit more budget and you want us to do it for you, then head to thewern.com.
I love that. Well done, Luz. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, babe.
We'll do another one after you launch the book, just to talk about how the launch event went. Thanks so much, Lucy. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Island Networking podcast. As I mentioned, this was a bonus episode because we are still working on a new format for season 3, but we have tons of episodes for you to catch up if you've just found out about us. Keep up with everything else that we're doing, our events, and all of our resources. Head over to islandnetworking.uk and subscribe to our newsletter, and also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I'll catch you all next time.